machine, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I've done a few Danish heroes, or normal people. No, not a lot of normal people, actually. But I've done a hero once in a while.
What's the most fun to do then? To be the hero or the villain?
Well, the ones that pays the most. It's tomato in the sense that all actors are trying to make their characters as complex as possible. So if you do play the good guy, you will have to find some of his flaws, some of his mistakes. Mm-hmm. Vice versa, you have to find something likable and something that you recognize in the villain.
Right.
So it's not a big difference. I mean, you can get boring villains, you can get boring good guys, but you can also get the opposite.
Gotcha. So, one thing that I realized, you have a brother, his name is Lars. You know this, Lars. He's an actor too, and you both have two things in common that I want to talk about. First of all, you both starred in the Star Wars universe. You as Galen Erso in the Rogue One movie. And your brother was the voice of Admiral Thrawn, I think his name is, in the Star Wars Rebels cartoon.
Yeah.
Have you been talking about that?
I had no idea he was doing that. When I got the job, and now I know, of course. Yeah, we thought that was pretty funny. Yeah. It's what are the odds that Dane will be in the Star Wars universe? What are the odds that Chew, and what are the odds that they're brothers? It's really crazy.
Speaking of what are the odds, so your brother was kind of the villain in a season and an episode of the BBC drama Sherlock.
Yeah, he was a crazy villain.
Yeah. So he played against Benedict Cumberbatch, right? Obviously. Did you ask him stuff before you were to face him in the Doctor Strange movie? Did you go to your brother and say tips and tricks on how to handle him?
Well, not really, because I mean Sherlock Holmes is a smart man, but Doctor Strange, he's a cheating bastard, right? So we couldn't really compare it. I mean, to be frank, we knew where it was going. The bad guys rarely survives too much. So we figured out that we have to gang up on him if we have to beat him.
All right. So, and you're Danish, obviously. As you were talking about. How often do you visit Sweden and?
Not that often. I worked here once in Stockholm. Og så har jeg boet i Göteborg. Det er længe siden. So that's a long time ago. And I had to learn the language because nobody had a clue what I said. And it was strange because everybody from Copenhagen understands Swedish, easy peasy. But every time I said something and I thought I was mildly funny, it was just looking at these blank faces. And then, well, I realized we don't have the same sense of humor either, apparently.
So I think it's the language.
It could be that language barrier. Yeah, but no, I've been here a lot with films and opening a film, and I worked here, and it's my bigger brother, it's my neighbor, big brother, right? So close ties.
Yeah. So we've been talking about some movies, roles of yours. There are probably some gamers here tonight too. How's Hideo Kojima to work with? Is my obvious question.
Well, he's fantastic. I mean, we have an interpreter between us. He understands everything, all English. I'm sure he speaks really well, but he doesn't want to do it, so he has somebody translating. And it's that, that it's interesting with Japanese or Asian languages that if you ask a question, if I ask, should I go right here? Then the translator would go, and it goes on for 5 minutes. It's like, and then Hideo will say, yes. So sometimes there's a little lots of translation. He's a wonderful man, and he's such a positive energy. His mind is obviously working on a completely different frequency than the rest of ours. And he's just so happy to be around actors and make them do exactly what he wants them to do. It's a fantastic experience, unlike anything else you would ever do as an actor.
Right. So I don't want to steal all the questions, because obviously all these people might have questions. And we have microphone over here, and form a line. Swedes are excellent at forming lines, right? Yeah. One question per person, of course, and then when you're done, you may go to the back of the line if you want to, but please form a line if you have any questions. Let's open up the floor for questions to Mats.
That's one. I see one. One.
Wants to ask something.
What's happening? Okay, good luck with that, Mike. Oh, that's a chair. Okay.
Here we go. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Ida. I have a question about Hannibal Lecter. If he was to be presented, he's a psychologist, so if he was to be presented with a child who has experienced abuse at home, how would he deal with the situation?
If he was to be presented with what? So again, with a
child who has gone through abuse at home.
Well, I'm sure Hannibal Lecter, is that what you're saying? Yeah, I guess that child would really fast become a micro devil. He would teach the child to fight back, and probably just tell him what he always tells people, like, eat the root. So I think he would enjoy that, actually.
All right. Hello, sir. What's your name?
Hello, Mads. My name is Frederick. And my question for you is, well, I do have a question and I would like to do a request, but we will see. My question for you is, well, how is it to go from Marvel or Star Wars production, from the movies to a video game production, like Death Stranding? Like, are there any similarities, or are there a lot more differences, or what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, there are, well, the differences are obviously that one is a full story from A to Z. We know our character, we know where it's going, and we can discuss back and forth how to approach that with the director. Whereas in a video game, obviously for many reasons, he's not going to tell us exactly what's going to happen in this game. So we are doing generic things, and also sometimes little scenes. We're not sure where this is going, but he will use it somehow with his brilliant mind. So we're not we're not looped in the same way as it would be in a film. Similarities, obviously, on a let's say Star Wars film or the Doctor Strange, there's quite a bit of green screen shooting. There's a lot of special effects stuff that will happen later, and that's all we're doing in Hideo Koshima's work. I mean, we're dressed up in the tights, green.
The ping pong balls.
Ping pong balls, and what's it called? Mocap?
Motion capture.
And we're basically just running around looking like really stupid dancers. And, but the good thing is that everybody looks like that, so you're not alone. So yeah, the special effect part is kind of similar sometimes.
And I was gonna request that you do the Cassilius Doctor Strange steps that you did when he puts when Doctor Strange puts Cassilius in bondage, but I don't think anybody wants to see that here. So.
Well, there's something with the mic. You gotta go a little closer. I'm not sure I can hear what you say.
I was gonna suggest that you do the steps from Doctor Strange when the Doctor.
Oh, when it gets caught by the
yeah.
You can pay me for that later.
Sarah.
Hello.
First I want to tell you, like, it's so awesome that you have played both anti-hero and villain, because without villains there's no heroes.
Yeah.
And the second thing, the question I want to ask is Benedict Cumberbatch like Sherlock as smart as Sherlock?
Is Benedict Cumberbatch
As smart
as Sherlock?
Yeah.
He's a quite smart fellow. I mean, he's an intellectual in many ways. Obviously has this extremely fine, polished English. Definitely not a working class guy. I think he's pretty smart. I don't think he's as smart as Hannibal, if that's the question. And I don't think that Sherlock is either. So that will be an interesting match to see. You're welcome.
Hi, what's your name?
Amanda. And first I want to say, like, I've done a lot of acting myself, so I think you're like a really big inspiration. So thank you for existing.
You're welcome. And here's a trick. Come a little closer to the mic. Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, because I know actors like their roles differently, so which character, like you played, hated you the most?
Which actor? Sorry, I have a. It's not only you. Something in here. I have a really hard acoustic thing. Yeah. Which actor?
Which character did you hate the most?
Did I hate the most to do?
Yes.
Myself.
Yes.
I mean, the question is obviously. I mean, if I thought it was a badly written, or if it's a character that is a mean person, is there a difference there?
It depends, like, if you... Like,
I mean, it's a love-hate relationship, because I did a character called Sven Sved in a Danish film called The Green Butchers. And he's so fucking annoying. I mean, he's the most annoying character I've ever played, you know. But at the same time, I really liked him, because there was something fantastic about just running around inside him and being annoying 24/7 for 2 months. So I don't know if I hated him the most or I loved him the most, but it was definitely a love-hate relationship.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
My name is Lynn, and after the movies I like the villains most, and Caecilius was one of the favorite villains in Marvel. Because Doctor Strange has many like effects afterwards. Was it difficult to act before you could see how it would look in the final movie?
Yes and no. I've not done a lot of films with special effects, but I've done some. Obviously, the Danish ones are very few. We don't do films like that. But the difficult thing with special effects is that if you're fighting an enormous monster, like a giant scorpion, like I did in a film called Clash of the Titans, they're not there because you can't get scorpions that big. You know? And then you have to imagine it, and somebody's running around with a stick and a tennis ball on it, right? And then,
why is it always a tennis ball?
It's for everyone to have an eye, right? So if there's more than one person in the scene, we have to look at the same thing. It could be something else, you're right. I think maybe could be badminton. Yeah, I'll suggest that next time. But that's a little tricky. And I remember we were like 7 warriors, running after these scorpions or whatever. And none of us had ever done anything like it. And we felt silly, really dumb, And then Sam Worthington, he just came from 2 years' work on Avatar, and that's the only thing he did on that, just green screen. And then he just went, whoa, and he ran after this monster, and the rest of us were like, all right, let's go. So that is a little tricky when you don't have anything, right? But in terms of Doctor Strange, it was not that bad. It was more the surroundings, the buildings, the streets that went upside down, some of it was built for us, so we could run on a wire and run on the ceiling upside down, and sometimes it was just happening in the background, but we didn't have to interact with it, so it wasn't actually that difficult in this situation.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Hej Mads.
That's a Danish girl?
Ja.
Yeah.
Fra Jylland. Jeg hedder Trine.
Hi, Trine.
Hej.
It's like a code language.
We just said hi. It's the same in Swedish.
It's not.
Guys, what's wrong with this generation? Sorry.
Should I do it in English?
We'd rather do it in English.
Okay. So I think that it's easier to get roles and stuff when you're out there, but is it very difficult to make it as a Danish or a Scandinavian actor in the US?
It's hard to say. I mean, there are different ways of doing this, right? If we look back in the old days, you had Ingrid Bergman. She went there by herself. She made it. We had Max von Sydow, to a degree, did that himself. This generation of actors, and also regarding Swedish actors, were kind of riding on a, especially Danes maybe, were riding on a wave of dogma film, and people were watching Danish films also in America. When they watched Danish films, they watched Danish actors. And all of a sudden they need a funny foreigner. And then you go, hey, let's use the Danes, right? So for us it was a different thing. But then we also had built quite a lot back home that we could show. I find that the next generation after this, the old guys, they are a little more, they go straight for the goal. They don't want to do anything in Denmark, they go straight over there. That can be difficult, because you will now be around thousands of Americans who probably speak the language a bit better than you do, at least for starters, and you don't even have anything to show for it. So I would always recommend for the Scandinavian actors, you know, start working back home, do some great stuff, and eventually you will have something to show.
Do you feel like a pride? Oh, I'm sorry, great question. Scandinavian pride when you see other actors coming from here. I mean, like,
yeah,
we have.
I think we
some
should be
people
proud.
Game of Thrones, for instance,
yeah,
like
but tons of them. I mean, obviously, the 2000 Skarsgård brothers.
Literally 2000.
2000.
Yeah. They're all good looking.
And remind me to chop that thing off of Stellan next time. He keeps producing it, and they're all great actors. It's just like, come on, give us a break, Stellan. Yes, it's a pride. I worked with obviously Alicia Vikander on a Danish film, and right after that she just went gone. Right? Won an Oscar 2 years later, and I think we should be proud. But there's also something to be proud about. When Danes and Swedes, and to a degree now also happening for Norwegians, and hopefully soon for the Finnish, when we go there, we've done a lot of work. We're extremely experienced compared to other American actors who's not doing a lot, just waiting for the big chance. And I think that the way we work in Scandinavia is really solid. We have the eye on the ball. We like to work with people, and we have good ideas. So I think that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Adam, and I was gonna ask you a question about Mr. Kojima, actually. Since he has gotten, his hands on stars like Norman Reedus and even, the other big directors and such, how were you approached by him, and why did you accept?
I was approached through a mutual friend of ours, and I can't reveal his name because then I will reveal other things that I'm not allowed to. So it was through him that I met up. And he pitched it to me, my friend, and I was like, what video game, what do you mean? And then I met Hideo, and he showed me the stuff, and I was like, whoa, what is this? I'm a big fan of graphic novels, and his world is just beyond. I mean, it's extreme. It is beautiful. It is radical. So for me, that was actually a complete new world that opened up there, and I'm very grateful that he invited me in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it graphic novel?
Yeah, I've been a graphic novel collector since I was a kid. All kinds of stuff.
Can you name some of your favorites?
Well, I started out obviously with the classic Lucky Luke and Tintin and stuff like that. And later on it became Jodorowsky and Möbius, Tati, a lot of European creators. Will Eisner was a big thing.
Will Eisner, yeah.
So yeah, that's the whole universe I think is super fascinating, especially when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But also still now. I mean, the problem with it is that they keep producing it. You don't have that much money, you can't buy it all. It keeps coming. A little like here. I guess if you guys are collectors of these things, I was like, it never stops. They keep producing, and you gotta have it all.
Yeah, I have it all. Have you been around the floor? Have you seen something? I'm gonna
very little. I saw very little, but I've seen it before, and it's quite immaculate. Some of the artists and some of the stuff you can collect.
Do you think you will buy something? Here?
I mean, when my kids were smaller, I tend to. And I also tend to, if I bring stuff back home, my wife would let me go. At the attic, up on the attic. So it's not a good reason for me to do it anymore.
Do you, do you have I must ask, do you have yourself as an action figure from like Star Wars or Doctor Strange?
I have a lot. Yeah.
Do your kids play with them? No,
my kids are too big for that. They're like punch you. I got quite a few on Hannibal, and I got quite a few on the Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
But then there was a rumor that they were not making one of me in Star Wars. And I kept complaining. Every time I saw the producer, I was like, do you have a minute? And then eventually they gave up and came in, here you go, that's what okay. So I mean, it would be a disaster to be the guy who invented the Death Star and not have the statue. So I got one answer.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ren. I would like to ask a question about your career. How did you start this? Like, was it your dream, or what was the starting around this career of getting a movie action or something like that? Becoming a movie character?
Coincidence. It was not a dream when I was a kid. I mean, I wanted to be Bruce Lee when I was little. Not an actor, I just wanted to be Bruce Lee. You know? Well, I mean, we watched a lot of films when we were kids, me and my brother, and we listened to what we have here in Scandinavia called radio theater.
Yes.
A lot of thrillers and stuff, and we could do all the voices by heart. But I never imagined that you could become an actor. I thought that was something that was running in the family, and then would pass it on to your kids. Then out of nowhere, I was asked to be in a musical in the background because I was a gymnast. So they needed some people to flip around in the background and also do some little dancing steps and moves. And the choreographer thought I was pretty good at that, so she asked me if I wanted to learn the craft of dancing. And then I realized that that was only girls, so I would be the only man. So I said, yeah, let's give that a chance. So I was a professional dancer for 9 years. And then I was always a little more in love with the drama of dancing than the aesthetic. So I asked myself, why don't you just try to do drama full time? And I applied for school. So it's been a little detour to get there.
Thanks a lot for your answer.
You're welcome.
Hello?
What's your name?
Andre.
You have been in a lot of different movies, like Doctor Strange and James Bond. You have talked about it, but which movie was most fun to be a part of? Like, most fun to do?
Of all the films I've done, I mean, only the American ones?
You can choose one.
I can choose my own. I mean, different fun, different situations. You know, sometimes you meet some people who become your real good friends. That's fun. Sometimes it's just really funny to do the film, like The Green Witches was a crazy, funny thing to do. It was obviously enormously fun to be in a Star Wars film. It was kind of surreal to walk around through, you know, between stormtroopers everywhere. Like, whoa, I'm in a Star Wars film.
Did you go?
I did not go big. I remember I had a much cooler weapon, remember? I don't have to go, I had the Death Star.
Yeah.
Then I go, no, but I mean, is this still on? Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. They're all fun in different ways. I mean, if I have to pick one, it's gotta be The Green Butchers still, the Danish film we did. I mean, for some reason, it was such a surreal thing we did. Surreal characters, and we were pretty sure that we would never get any work again after that. So we kind of like, okay, let's just do it. We're done, you know, but that was fun to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, it's the Emperors. Smile Clothes. Hey, what's your name?
Yes, my name is Thomas or Cusco. Big fan. I was wondering, when you were cast as Caecilius for Doctor Strange, and as you received the role, how did you prepare for it? I mean, he's a magician, he's a monk, he's like all over the place. So how did you prepare for the role?
Well, he's one fucked up monk, if you No, I mean, the story is there. Preparation is always in the story together with the director. And yes, I mean, there is like, yeah, it's bad. But on the other hand, what he says makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, why wouldn't you? I mean, you can sacrifice a few thousand, maybe 100,000, and you can change the world into the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, without pain, without suffering. So it's all this discussion that you probably had when you dropped the first nuclear bomb, right? We're going to stop the war and save 2 million people's lives, but we have to take the lives of 100,000 or 150,000. So that's the balance he's doing. He's not crazy. He just thinks that the goal, justifies the means, right? So that's an interesting character. I think it's quite human. It's got dilemma. The other preparation was obviously extremely physical because we were. I was kind of getting my Bruce Lee dream fulfilled because I was doing a lot of flying kung fu. So that was extremely physical. We were doing training every day, 2 or 3 hours every morning with the stunt guys. And so that was the main preparation as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Did you do his Alan Rickman impersonation or something else? He's
not while I was around. No. Is he doing one? Is he good?
Yeah, he does a couple, I think.
Yeah, cool. Damn, I should have seen that.
Yeah. Anyways, hello.
Hello, I'm JD from South Korea. By the way, hello Sweden. Okay, obviously I'm Festival, but today I want to ask about Arctic. Arctic will Asia premiere in South Korea next month. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I saw the interviews that filming was very difficult to take. And could you share some of the most difficult scenes you could take?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Just to enlighten everybody else who doesn't know what a festival is. A festival is quite a large group of people now that are fans of the TV show Hannibal. So they call themselves Fannibals. And they are often seen with little flower crowns on their head, like these people here. And it's always lovely to see you guys wherever we go. Arctic is a film, we're asking about the film called Arctic, that is a survival film I shot, in the end of last year. A man who's stranded on the Arctic, so it's a basic survival film. It's quite brutal, it's quite beautiful, quite emotional film, and I'm the only person in the entire film, except for one more person that will pop up. So that was a very brutal shoot, and the nature was brutal. I mean, everything was brutal. It was so cold, it was crazy. We had one day we were stepping out of the car, and the winds were so crazy that when I opened the car, the door ripped off and flew away. And we never saw the door again. So we decided to at least wait a couple of hours before we started shooting. But that was basically what was happening up there. From one second to the next, it was just, you couldn't work in the conditions. But it shows on the film, and I think it plays a major part.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a great time.
Thank you so much.
Hey man, what's your name?
Hej.
Du kan prata svenska om du vill. Är det bättre att prata svenska?
Jag kan prata engelska.
Okay, here you go.
Hi, my name is Ossian, and my question is, what's your favorite actor?
My favorite actor? There's a lot of favorite actors out there. I mean, the actors keep surprising me and amazing me. When I grew up as a kid, I mentioned Bruce Lee before. And it was not just a crush as a kid on somebody who was cool. I simply loved the way that he had something charismatic about him, that he could do very, very little things, and it was still extremely expressionable, and we could tell what he was thinking. I had the same with Buster Keaton when I was a kid. I loved watching him. Later on in my life, I think I went up to the Robert De Niro kind of actors, which I think have done some terrific jobs as well. But if I have to mention a Swedish guy, I gotta say I've worked with both of them, Mikkelsen and Stellan Skarsgård are some of my favorite Swedish actors.
Hello.
Hi.
What's your name?
Marianne. I was was planning to do this in Norwegian, but you know, Danish people understand Norwegian even worse than Swedish understand Danish. So I'll try. You have mentioned The Green Butchers a couple of times. It's an all-time favorite of mine. It's the kind of movie that makes you cry because you laugh so hard. And you have also been talking about making it international and the pride in making that move. But will you do Danish movies as well? Will you go back to do the kind of crazy, funny, really strange movies?
Yeah, I definitely will. Hopefully next year I will